Good afternoon. You few should consider yourself very privileged that you have the opportunity to see this kind of a movie on a full screen. It's a very, very rare opportunity, in fact, to see these kind of movies on full screen, because to get the licensed version for a full screen public viewing is very difficult. The rights are in France. As Mr. Sarangi told, is a silent era film, but not necessarily silent. Perhaps it speaks more than the speaking or talking movies. Firstly, as I introduce the movies, I'll introduce you to the period. It was 1431, as you might be knowing, Joan of Arc, and the period when Britishers were there in France, they were ruling France. And there was a continuous fight going on. There was a group which were sympathetic to British, and then there were revolutionaries. And Joan was 19 when she led the troop and had won against Britishers in major two wars. Pro-British French people, they arrested her out of conspiracy. And at that time, they took shelter of religion to execute her. This is the only movie on this subject which is using the actual transcript, which was there during the court trial of Joan of Arc. There are so many other movies which were made later on, but they didn't use the original transcript. They melodramatized here. They in fact concentrate more on the trial than her glorification of the wars which she had won. They concentrate on the court trial scenes. The director, Dreyer, about him, his background was, he was basically a Danish person. He came from Denmark. He was an orphan, a child out of a maid, illegal child, adopted by parents who didn't give him the legal rights of a child. That is how he grew up, but he was very keen on movies and very intelligent person. And he didn't find much environment in Denmark to produce movies, the kind of movies he wanted to make. So he came to France. And he was very lucky that he got going in the elite circles who mattered there. And he also could find a Dutch person to fund his movie. And I'm not sure what made him choose this subject, because this was his first movie actually. Good thing was that he had a good budget sanctioned, open-ended, that he could spend. And he had the complete freedom to do so. So in fact, the first thing he did was that the script which came to him, he read and he said, no, I do not want a filmy script. I'll depend on the transcript, original transcript only. Second thing he did was, in planning the entire movie, it was all on a set, a huge set. The model of this set still exists in Denmark. Firstly, a model, very nice model was made. And that model was such that entire set was to be built by concrete. And they had the walls of wherever this court was, the entire campus had the court, some houses, church, everything. And in fact, in the entire movie, he planned in a manner that any landscape is not visible, which can prejudice the mind of the viewer in terms of geographical locale or any other feeling. He wanted people to just think of court trial, think of Joan of Arc, think of what went on, and in a very, very mysterious environment he wanted to create. So, and it was for those times, a very, very expensive set, very expensive set. And the walls of the compound and most of the structures, what they created, were created in a manner which permitted all the camera angles, movement of the cameras. So they were all folding kind, very heavy structure, but folding kind. The other thing what he did was, when you, in silent movies, obviously it's the visuals, the expressions, and the other biggest support you have is the music. Normally in the silent era, there was a huge tendency in all the directors, producers to fall back on the Western classical music, which was firstly valuable to them. Generally speaking, that was not in patenting. A lot of Western music doesn't fall under patenting, at least the compositions. And they could easily use it, and they were effective also. They were pretty effective. But here he wanted to deal with the music to not, generally Western classicals, except for Ride of Valkyries and all, which were at extreme passion and about the commencement of war and all. He wanted to create his own music, use the instruments which were more contemporary. In fact, in one of the climax scenes where the Joan of Arc is burnt on a stake, they have used around 20 electric guitars, 1928 I'm talking about. And the kind of music they have created, you listen to that, you will not believe that it is come like that. So he created a music out of modern instrument which could supplement the whole environment very differently. He deliberately didn't go to piano because he thought piano music is too soothing and is not the way I would like to create this environment. Other thing which he did, the way he planned the cinematography, which was so much talked about, is the highest point, in fact, in this movie is cinematography, which remains very unparalleled. He planned the entire movie in close-ups. Almost, it still has the record of having the largest percentage of close-ups. 70% of the movie is shot in close-ups, and even the balance 30% of the movie is in medium shots. The technique of the camera which they have used is such that there are low-angle shots, there are also some high-angle shots. He has created the angles in a manner that you are not able to figure out the entire surrounding. He also, the positions of the characters, the judge. Generally, you will imagine that in a court trial, there will be a position of the judge, there will be position of the jury, there will be position of the person who is going to be tried, there will be audience somewhere. But he has created the entire positioning of the characters and the camera positioning angles in a manner that you do not know the relative position of these characters, even when she is tried. Because perhaps the idea was that, after all, Joan of Arc claimed that she has been sent by the gods, she had the masses of the god to fight against British. And therefore, he conveyed in a way that he avoided showing a lower position perhaps of Joan of Arc than the jury there. That is what we can infer. I mean, there is no script to say why he did so. Then he used camera angles in a manner that all these priests who were trying her or later executed her, a lot of oblique angles were used to bring out the evilness of inside on their faces, distorted faces, different angles of the faces, their fear he could bring in the close-ups of those priests. And when it came to Joan of Arc, it was generally the top focus cameras which is used with excessive light on her face so that the expressions come out very well for the audience. Highest point of this movie is considered as Falconetti, who was the heroine of this movie. In the words of Roger Ebert, who is considered by many as the best critic, film critic in the world, he was, He said that if you have not seen the eyes of Falconetti, then you have not seen cinema. I mean, for 70% of the movie in close-ups, and that too, she had to show an emotion of a tragedy, a passion, which was very, very spiritual, and to achieve the right expressions, what he did, he tortured virtually Falconetti. She was made to sit on the concrete floor on the knee for hours together, and the retakes, scene retakes were taken number of times, sometimes even 20, 30 times, that she gets totally exhausted emotionally to enact. And that, when she reached that stage, then he took the final shots. And therefore, the kind of expressions she's showing is something stays with you for a very, very long time. That was all about it. I think the movie will speak for itself. I hope a couple of you who are here will see it and take the message forward that these movies are to be seen. Thank you.